more on that, we are joined in the Beijing studio by Mr. Gregory Ing Chang, our current affairs commentator. And meanwhile, in the city of Philadelphia in the United States, we have Mr. Howard Nathan, President and CEO of the Gift of Life Donor Program. Welcome to both of you, gentlemen. First of all, Mr. Chang, I want you to comment briefly about China's decision to end using of organs coming from executed prisoners. Some believe it is huge progress in terms of protection of human rights. Your view?
The answer is true, because I realized that 5 years ago, for example, 90% of the organ donors coming from executed prisoners. These people obviously has very low socioeconomic status, so their families coming from the same background, so they are in the least position to protect their own rights. So now we have changed the situation to ban this practice. Is a tremendous progress.
But on the other hand, here comes the dilemma. We end a practice that is being considered not the best one. However, where is the best one? Particularly when you think about the cultural hindrance. Let me have you first, Mr. Chang, to comment on that before we go to the other panelists in the U.S. Mr. Chang.
All right, first of all, I think there's another way out is to get the consent of the prisoners ready to be executed, and also the support from the families. If they're willing to take on this mission to become a donor, it's allowed. So that's door is still open. Secondly, I think China should improve its program of publicizing the idea that is an act of dignity, act of honor, to make donations. So therefore, we have a more supply on the other side. So we cannot depend indefinitely supply of organs coming from the executed prisoners. So we need other revenues to expand the supply of organs.
We're going to talk about some of the practice that China tried to use, but not necessarily successful for the moment, at least. But for now, let's go to Mr. Nathan in Philadelphia. You are coming from, Mr. Nathan, the specific organization talking about life donor, but I'm sure in your country it could also be culturally sometimes challenging to persuade people to donate.
Well, there's more of an acceptance in the United States over the last 40 years or so for both donation after death and also living donation. We have systems in place to educate the public, and we also have systems in place to educate healthcare professionals to recognize those opportunities when families could be in a position to donate. But it's a voluntary system, a totally voluntary system. And of course, we in the U.S. are opposed to a paid donor system, and of course the issues related to executed prisoners.
Right. On the other hand, I know, sir, in your country there is a debate about the so-called opt-in, opt-out. Opt-in, mainly, just to explain to our viewers, it's about a system that people would automatically sign on. In fact, not necessarily have to actively register, but opt-out is that you have to actively say that you do not want to join this organ donor specific program before your name will be erased from the list. So that's a huge debate also going on in your society. It's not a piece of cake at all, Mr. Nathan.
Yes, opt-in has been the way in the United States and most of the Western countries because it's a way to get people to, while they're alive and well, to say yes to donation in a voluntary way. We do it through our driver's license programs in all of our states. We have about 120 million people, which is almost half the people in the United States who have driver's license have signed up. The debate, of course, about opting out is freedom of choice. In some of the European countries, even where there is opting out, they still actually talk to the family in those circumstances. It's really, such as in Spain. So the reality is we want public support, cultural and societal support of donation after death, or, of course, as a living donor. To do it in an ethical manner.
Right.
So opting in is the way we do it in the U.S., and it's been pretty successful.
Well, Mr. Chang, can China follow the U.S. example? I understand earlier there was also a program that the government and also NGOs try to support when people are applying for a driver's license, but very few people would like to comply to it or actively register for that. How can you deal with this cultural dilemma? And by the way, China's population is huge, and therefore people that are in need of donors organs are extremely high, probably much higher than the United States and elsewhere. So what would you say about that dilemma?
First of all, we have to break the barriers. You mentioned earlier that the Chinese
Well-
are inclined to think, for example, after you died, you should have the body intact. However, I think the attitude has changed drastically nowadays. I think younger people have different ideas. For example, you don't have to go to the burial on earth. You can have cremation and other practices. So I think that's a welcoming change. But in China, any practice which is proved to be effective worldwide can be applied in China. So what we need now, we need many things to be done. First of all, we need to improve the law to make all this process going smoothly with good guarantee so people feel safe to practice. Second, of course, we need publicity, we need education to persuade people to take actions to be a donor. Also, we have to mobilize the medical personnel plus the community people to get involved.
Wow.
Last of all, I have to
All
mention one more thing. We need facilities to make the whole process of donation operation smooth going.
Mr. Tang, did you realize that you have just given a laundry list of things that needs to be done? But as you know, the demands for the organs and donations at this moment is already high at the time you're speaking. So can we wait, Mr. Nathan? I'm sure in your country there are also stages of development in which debates like these happen. So how can we, in a short period of time, convince more people to donate their organs so that the supply and demand can be met? Mr. Nathan.
Yes, I've actually traveled to China, and some of my colleagues have traveled to China. Dr. Delmonico, who's the head of the Transplantation Society, and we stand ready to help create a system that can carry this out. It may take some time, but it can be done if everybody's willing to talk about it, not only you and the media to educate the public that donation is a good thing, but also the healthcare professionals to develop systems to identify people who could be potential donors, and have organizations like mine, Gift of Life in Philadelphia, which has the highest success rate in donation anywhere in the world. There are systems that can be developed and developed quickly if we then are culturally sensitive to what's happening in China, but also educating people
Right.
so they have the opportunity to say yes to help save somebody else's life. And they will.
Right. Mr. Tang, before we go, a final question for you. You see Mr. Nathan already very high in his energy in terms of advocacy and also promoting his cause inside China. But still, we are talking about cultural differences. Still, we are talking about a country that is in progress in terms of social development. As we mentioned earlier, the giving up of the program of so-called the donors coming from the executed prisoners. So what do you think is the reality check that we should bear in mind, and how much faster can we really do it?
We cannot do any faster than anyone else. However, we should try our very best, because donation of such act to save lives is noble, is essential. There's not an alternative. I think Chinese government can take the lead, because usually the government make a book policy, people would follow. However, we need to study the issue carefully, improve the law necessary, encourage people to get involved, like medical and
Right.
to get involved. So it's a gigantic task, but it's possible to be done with proper leadership and participation from China.
And it's extremely important because everybody wants to have a better life, as we say, healthier life as well. We want to thank the both of you, Howard Nathan from Philadelphia, coming from the Gift of Life Donor Program, and also Mr. Gregory Yin Tang, our current affairs commentator. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is all the time we have for today on World Insight. We'd like to know what you think about anything you've seen on our program, the two debates about Russia and Ukraine, and also about the organ donor program here in China. You can email us your thought, worldinsight@cctv.com. I'm Tian Wei from myself and the World Insight team. Thanks for watching, and join us again tomorrow for more global perspectives and stories from across China and certainly from around the world. Good night.